Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, we will be discussing the United States foreign policy, the American diplomacy. Our president has been on a long trip to the Middle East. It took him from Palestine, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iraq, and Israel. He thinks that he's pushing this peace thing that he is after. Of course, he's in Iraq here. I don't know what he's laughing about. There's really nothing to smile about in Iraq, except he killed 1 million people there. But if you go on the White House website, you will read some of the statements that President Bush had said. I'm going to read you one of his statements that he said on January 13th, 2008. He said, and I think we hear you dialing the number, so you might want to mute that. The title of that statement is President Bush Discusses Importance of Freedom in the Middle East. The importance of freedom in the Middle East. He said, a great new era is unfolding before us. This new era is founded on the equality of all people before God. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? This new era is being built with the understanding that power is a trust that must be exercised with the consent of the governed, and deliver equal justice under the law. And this new era offers hope for the millions across the Middle East who yearn for a future of peace and progress and opportunity. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? The title? The Importance of Freedom in the Middle East. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you notice where he went and his friends in the Middle East, you will see that all his friends are dictators who offer no freedom to their people. And his enemies are those who actually are democratic and want freedom to their people. The Iraqis want freedom to their people. What opportunities did we give the Iraqis, the million of them they're dead now because of George Bush? What progress and what future do these people have? Nothing. They're dead because of George Bush. He said a great new era is unfolding before us. When he was in Palestine, ladies and gentlemen, he did talk peace. He wants to get peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. He knows, the Israelis know, the Palestinians know, everybody else in the world knows that you cannot have peace by the end of 2008. By the end of 2008, we have an election. This whole thing, the Republicans forced the president to do some PR to repair the damage that he had caused them. So he said, okay, I will go to the Middle East and try to do some positive things. He went around asking everybody, because that's what they want. They want to keep things hot. in the Middle East to tell you that only Republican president will be able to solve it, that a woman will not be able to handle it, and a black man will not be elected as president, because that's what they want. They want somebody that they can defeat, and definitely they will have that. But he went in there to gather support, supposedly, against Iran. Everywhere he went except Israel. Israel wants him to nuke Iran. Israel wants him to destroy Iran. Israel wants him to kill millions of Iranians. And he said he's going to do it. That's what he told Benjamin Netanyahu, that if we have to go to war, because Benjamin Netanyahu told him that, hey, we need to go and nuke these Iranian weapons of mass destruction, except this time they call it nuclear weapons. It's the same old story of weapons of mass destruction. He went to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia told him, no, Iran is a good friend, a good neighbor. He went to Kuwait, the Kuwait that his father had liberated. After he leaves Kuwait, the Kuwaiti foreign minister jumps over to Iran, while George Bush was on his way to Saudi Arabia. And from Iran, the Kuwaiti foreign minister says, Iran is a good country, it's a good neighbor, it's a good friend. We're not on board with you if you are going to destroy Iran. So anyhow, we will continue, ladies and gentlemen, with this after we bring up our guest for tonight, who is William Blum. William Blum is the author of Killing Hope, United States Military and CIA Intervention since World War II. He is also the author of Rogue State, a guide to the world's only superpower, amongst many other articles and books. His website, we're going to put it on the screen. It's a very interesting website. It's at www.killinghope.org, killinghope.org. And ladies and gentlemen, my guest, actually, the reason we started talking about foreign policy, because he is an expert on foreign policy. He wrote many books on foreign policy, and he's going to tell us exactly what America's foreign policy is all about. Is it about exporting democracy that we don't even have? Is it about just, exporting freedom that we don't even have? Is it about making sure that everybody is living happily ever after, that we are not? Of course it's not, but that's what President Bush wants us to believe. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring up Bill Blum. Welcome to the program, Mr. Blum.
Hi, can you speak louder, please?
Yes. I will try to speak louder, and hopefully you will be able to hear us well.
Okay. No, it's okay.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay, very good. Welcome to the program, Mr. Blum. I want to start with, we talked about foreign policy, and everybody thinks that we are there. I mean, the myth of the American foreign policy, that we want to go and export democracy to the world because we care so much about people in the world. That's at least what our government wants to tell us. But you don't see it that way. You see completely something different in the American foreign policy. Tell me why you see it differently.
Well, it's very difficult to believe that American foreign policy is aimed at making life better for foreign peoples. When you consider what we do on a regular basis, all the invasions, the bombings, the overthrows of governments, the suppression of popular movements, the torture, it's a huge, long list covering more than a century of the U.S. government going around the world and doing all these terrible things. Now, how can one know anything about this and say that the U.S. means well by the peoples of the world? And that belief, that false belief, is what keeps most Americans and most people in the world from seeing through foreign policy. That's the myth which one has to overcome if one wants to understand U.S. foreign policy.
Okay. So what are we seeing in the Middle East now? I mean, the president is saying he wants democracy and freedom. I mean, I just read one of the statements that he just made. He said a great new era is unfolding before us, and he said that we want to deliver equal justice under the law to everybody in the Middle East, and he's hoping that these people in the Middle East, they want future of peace, progress, and opportunity. Isn't that what he's doing there?
Just had a long story in today's Washington Post about his visit to Egypt and how the leading activists and politicians there say they don't believe this talk about democracy. They did maybe a few years ago, but they have no illusions now about George Bush and his policies. I think people are confused all over the world about U.S. foreign policy, including in the U.S., of course. I say you will continue to be confused unless you realize a basic fact. The U.S. government has the ambition of nothing short of dominating the world. And don't take my word for it. They've said it very plainly. They issue statements and policy papers saying exactly that. They've done that ever since the end of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union dissolved, that told the powers that be in the U.S. that the world was theirs. And beginning in 1992, they have written one policy paper after another which says explicitly that they will not tolerate any opposition to their plans. And this is easily found on the web, on the internet.
Okay. Now, tell me about, I know you've talked about what happened in Kosovo, and you used that as an example. What really happened there? Did we bring freedom to those people there?
Where? Which country?
Kosovo. You said something about when we bombed Kosovo.
Oh, Kosovo.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was depicted as an act of humanitarianism. Yeah. And 78 days of bombing, day and night for 78 days, and we call that an act of humanitarianism. That was a civil war which the U.S. interfered in. I mean, Yugoslavia was having a civil war, and the U.S. government had no right to intervene in that civil war any more than other countries should have intervened in the American Civil War by sending in armies or airplanes, because they didn't have any airplanes then. But we interfered in the civil war. We took sides in that civil war purely because we knew that Kosovo would be an obedient client state of the U.S. and of NATO, while Serbia was showing too much independence. Serbia, then and now still, clings to a measure of socialism which is not acceptable by the West. And that's their crime for which they have to be punished, and are still being punished.
Okay, so now we were doing the same thing in Iraq, of course. We went there to liberate the Iraqis and get them from underneath the dictator Saddam Hussein, supposedly. But was that really why we went there, so we can get these poor Iraqis, we can give them freedom? Is that why we went to Iraq?
No, of course not. The Iraqis actually had a much better life under Saddam Hussein than they have had under the occupation, and that's been said by high people in the Iraqi government again and again. We went there as part of our plan to dominate the Middle East for the oil and for Israel. Those are the two main factors, or there were other factors as well. Iraq had just announced that it was going to, it was switching to the euro from the dollar for its oil currency, and that is a very threatening thing to Washington. And one of the first acts of the occupation was to cancel that switch to the euro. So that's also a reason. There are other reasons I can give as well, but the main reasons are oil and Israel, and that's why they intervened. They couldn't care less about Saddam being a dictator. He had been an ally of theirs for years. While he was at his very worst in the 1980s, he was an ally of the U.S. So that shows you what we think about his being a dictator.
Okay, so I mean, there was an interest there for the United States and Israel. And since the policies of Israel and the United States seem to be intermingled so much, then, I mean, this stuff about justice and freedom for other people, of course, you know, we don't believe it. But I mean, if this is a vital interest for the United States, why not, if they have the power, why not go and kill 1 million people so we can have these benefits? What's wrong with that?
Well, I'm speaking about it from a moral point of view, which Americans are raised to believe is the motivation behind all our policies, foreign and domestic. It's a deep-seated morality, and so from that point of view, the U.S. foreign policy can't be justified at all. That was my point.
Well, yeah, but I mean, morality, that's something for people to deal with. You and your neighbors, you deal with moralities. But when it comes to government that has to protect its superpower state or status, and it has to protect its citizens for the future, morality has no place here. I mean, justice has no place. Justice is just talks between, you know, people on the streets. But when it comes to a government, that does not, you don't take that into consideration.
Well, if what you say is true, then why doesn't George Bush and Cheney tell us this? Why don't they announce when they invaded Iraq? Why don't they say this is to ensure the expansion and the continuation and the wealth of the empire? They don't say this at all because they know the world would laugh at it and be horrified. So I don't know why I guess you're playing devil's advocate.
Right.
But in any case, it doesn't hold water.
Okay.
In practice, how does the average American benefit from U.S. foreign policy if it's for their benefit? They don't benefit at all, except they've lost thousands of young men and women who are dead now, and many thousands more who are wounded, whose lives have been ruined. So it can't be for the American people, any of these interventions. The same with the invasion of Afghanistan. It's not for the American people. So who is it for? It's for the corporations who benefit greatly from these invasions.
Let me ask you this, Mr. William. I know you've done a lot of studies and a lot of about governments and et cetera, et cetera. Do we have, is the government state, is that something of the past where we do have governments still supposedly in power, but actually it's corporations that run the whole world? Is this what we have now? We have corporations running the world and governments, they're just there for their good looks?
The distinction between governments and corporations is very thin. The executives of the U.S. government, the great majority of them come from the corporations, and when their term in office is completed, they will go back to the corporations. There's a revolving door between the executive branch, well, between the government and the corporation. So it's not even so meaningful to make a distinction of one being a front for the other. It's two sides of the same coin.
Okay. Now, Bin Laden in 2006 had recommended that Americans read your book, Rogue State. Can you tell me what is it that you have in Rogue State that kind of got the interest of bin Laden, that he would recommend it as good readings? He said that all Americans should read Rogue State, which is a book that you had written. What's in it that people should know?
I think the first chapter in that book explores the reason why there are so many anti-American terrorists around the world, and why the U.S. foreign policy is so hated. And it's not because these terrorists are all crazy fanatics. They whatever else you might say about them, they're rational human beings. And what they are reacting to as rational human beings is all the terrible things U.S. foreign policy has done to the Middle East, as one example, for decades. These terrorists, anti-American terrorists, are exacting revenge and retaliation for U.S. foreign policy. That's what it comes down to. And there will never be any victory against the terrorists until the U.S. government changes its foreign policy. We have to stop doing these awful things which make so many people hate us.
Okay. Now, were you surprised when bin Laden actually would go through that? I mean, were you surprised? Did you even know that he read your book?
No, of course, I was totally surprised. I wouldn't have any way of knowing that he had read the book. I knew there was an edition in Arabic, which I assume was what he read. But still, I was very shocked when the news came. But I was not upset at all. I was very pleased to get this publicity.
Okay. Now, did some people get very upset with you that your opinion matched bin Laden's opinion?
I got hundreds and hundreds of nasty emails, very, some of them were quite threatening. But at the same time, I was invited on many major media programs in the U.S., and that was a great thing for me, or for the cause that I espouse. I'm part of a worldwide movement which has the very ambitious goal of slowing down, if not stopping, the American empire. And to do that, to have any success along those lines, we have to reach the American people. And to reach the American people, we need to have access to the American mass media. And so for that reason, I was very pleased that this whole thing had taken place, because I had much more access to the mass media here than I ever have had before or ever will have again. I was interviewed on CNN and MSNBC and C-SPAN and all the many big programs on TV and radio, and that served a great purpose. And it also increased my sales of that book by many thousands. So it was a good thing.
Now, Mr. Blum, many people throughout history had their own empires, and they got those empires by basically killing a lot of people who don't belong to that empire. What's wrong? Why? I mean, this is our time. Why do you want to end the American empire? What's wrong with us having an empire?
As I said before, it has to do with morality. This world, everybody of all politics would agree that the world is in serious danger. There is so much suffering, so much horror going on, and very terrible governments and disease and the environment and all kinds of things. We know it. We know how bad it is. And to argue in favor of empires is to argue that we should continue with business as usual. The business as usual, which has brought us to this very dangerous and terrible point in history. And obviously, we can't continue with the same kind of politics, the same policies.
Okay.
Just for the sake of the environment all by itself, there has to be a change to American capitalism, which is the main cause of the environmental danger. George Bush refuses to take part in international movements to save the environment, and he says clearly. More than once, he has said clearly that it would adversely affect the profits of American corporations, and that's what he wants to protect the profits of American corporations. So that's part of what the empire exists for. The empire goes around the world to increase its profits. And so that's my answer to your question. To save the environment alone, for that reason alone, we have to put an end to this empire.
Okay. Now, don't you think this empire was really very short-lived, because we're bankrupt, our dollar is going down the drain big time, and our economy is in shambles, and basically our foreign policy is horrible. Everybody in the world hates us. Don't you think our golden days are over? So this talk about our American empire is really, it's gone, it's not there, and it will not be? Don't you think
when I speak of the empire, I'm speaking of the horrible things it does. That hasn't changed at all. The American economy may be in a shambles, but the Defense Department has all the money it needs, and which is partly why the economy is in shambles. That's the main reason, in fact. They have all the money they need, and they are continuing to go around the world bombing and killing and overthrowing and torturing and you name it. So that's why it has to end. This is the empire which is sucking the blood out of our own economy. Apart from what the need for it to end all around the world, what it does to our own economy is bad enough.
Okay. Very good, sir. Very good. I promised you I will not keep you for the whole hour, because I know you said 20 minutes, and I want to respect that. If there is any last statement that you would like to make, what you want, how can people find out exactly what they need to do? Because the mass media is basically drilling and programming this information into their heads, which is the agenda, the corporate agenda programming. What's your advice to the average people, to average Joe out there? How can they change this?
Well, the only way we're going to change it is to have our numbers increase to a very large amount. And our numbers are increasing. When I say our, I mean the anti-war movement and the anti-imperial movements. Our numbers are increasing a lot over the years, and we have to keep doing that until we reach, hopefully, we reach a, what's the term, critical mass, and there's an explosion of some kind. And I can't predict exactly what that explosion will look like, but I'm assuming if our numbers increase large enough, that will happen. And so, in the meantime, everybody must educate themselves and others as much as they can, and join various organizations who are active in these areas, and like the United for Peace and Justice and the Answer Coalition. Those are the two major anti-war organizations, and easy to find on the internet.
Do you see this explosion being an armed resistance?
No. There's no chance of that succeeding. The U.S. military and the police forces here are too powerful. It would be suicide to have an armed uprising. But if there's any democracy at all left in this society, then it has to be that when our numbers reach a certain level, there will be a political and social explosion, if not a military one. And it may affect elections, or it may affect us in other ways. Maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but that's what I'd like to pass on to your listeners.
Okay. Very good, sir. Mr. Blum, I just want to thank you for coming on the program, and hopefully we'll see you in the program soon.
Thank you. Can I once again mention my website?
Sure.
www.killinghope.org. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And by the way, we had your website on all the time during the
Oh, you did? So, okay. I didn't know that.
Yes, yeah. It was on the screen
okay.
all the time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, ladies and gentlemen. Well, an interesting gentleman who wrote few books, One of them was recommended by bin Laden. And as you know, I don't really believe that this bin Laden fellow even exists. But apparently, Rogue State is an interesting book. Just to read some of the, one of the previews of the book, one by Sam Smith. He said that Bill Blum came by his book title easily. He simply tested America by the same standards we use to judge other countries. The result is a bill of wrongs, an especially well-documented encyclopedia of malfeasance, mendacity, and mayhem that has been hypocritically carried out in the name of democracy by those whose only true love was power. Well, it really fits the description of this statement by George Bush, saying that it's a great era, great new era is unfolding before us. The new era is founded on the equality of all people before God. What about the equality of those Iraqis and Palestinians that are being killed? When President Bush was visiting Israel and Palestine, or the Palestinian territories, I don't want anyone thinking that there is a state called Palestine. No. We have in Palestine, there is a so-called government, the Palestinian National Authority, that has no authority, none whatsoever, because Israel still goes in, kidnaps people. They have committed a massacre 2 days ago. We have some pictures in, and I'm hearing, I don't know if this echo is also coming out, or I'm hearing something, a few seconds feedback. I don't know if we have that or not. But anyhow, maybe it's just in my head. What we have, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm telling you, there's an echo somewhere. So just check those soundboards, make sure nothing is on. Okay. I'm told there was something on that I was hearing. Anyhow. Okay. Let's put some of these pictures in where Israel had bombed the heck out of Gaza and massacred 26 people in the last 2 days. That's at the same time when George Bush is out there talking about peace. What peace when the Palestinians are dying by the scores? Now this is George Bush visiting the Palestinian Authority. You see this? This is what's misleading. We have a president called Mahmoud Abbas. He is the Palestinian Authority president. And if you look, we have even some soldiers there, or a marching band of some sort, just like any other state that has dignitaries visiting them. We even have over there is a red carpet. Of course, it's red, not because of its color. It's red because it is soaked and wet with Palestinian blood. This man that is walking on this carpet, his hands are full of innocent Palestinian blood. And he calls himself a man of peace. Now, if we go to some of these other pictures to show you what's really going on in the Middle East, this equality and justice that he is talking about here, it's nothing but a bunch of BS. Now, at the same time, when George Bush is in there in the Middle East talking about peace, this is what's going on in Iraq, and that was what's going on in Palestine. And we are talking about equality under God. What God would permit the killing of 1 million people? How many more people have to die before we stop the massacre in Palestine or in Palestinian homes and territories? How many more people have to die before we stop the madness in Afghanistan and in Iraq? Did we go over there to bring these people peace, progress, and opportunity? What opportunity those people in Gaza have? What opportunity those children in Gaza have? Besides being massacred by Israeli F-18s and F-16s and F-19s and Apache helicopters? What? Now he did go and visit. He visited Saudi Arabia, he visited Kuwait, he visited Egypt, and we have pictures to show where he went in all these places. Now, hand in hand with the Egyptian president. Now, what is this all about? Why receiving, and this is in Saudi Arabia, why receiving this man in all these Arab capitals, and here he is sitting with in Saudi Arabia with some entrepreneurs, and he came back and said that he got a contract from the Gulf states with $20 billion worth of contracts for our industry. And by the way, this $20 billion, it was announced way back in the summer. But now he's claiming it. Of course, I don't know what the heck he's laughing at, because he doesn't really understand Arabic. Or maybe somebody made a joke. I don't know why. Well, these are Saudis dancing, showing him. And here he is drinking Arabic coffee. I bet you he hates it because it's better. And if you don't acquire a taste for it, you're going to hate it. Because it is. And now, again, he's drinking that coffee. I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong. But for somebody who's not used to that, you know, they serve it in these little coffee cups or dimitas, whatever you call them. And now I guess he's trying to explain to the Arabs how to do it. Well, anyhow, it was a very nice public relations campaign for him. But, you know, ladies and gentlemen, while he was doing all this and watching, you know, going to horse farms that belongs to King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia and going into all these, you know, the embassies, the American embassies and consulates in those countries really did a good job by having a huge full program for the president. He wanted to accomplish two things. Wanted to see if these Arabs, and he knew that they will not be on board with attacking Iran, because I really don't think that we even want to attack Iran. Israel is pushing us and pushing us hard to get us to attack Iran. So he's going in there trying to gather support, and all the Arabs told him no. Saudi Arabia told him, nope, we're not on board. As a matter of fact, Prince Faisal, who is the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, he said, no. Iran is a good neighbor. Even Kuwait said the same thing. In Bahrain, they told him the same thing. But all he wanted to do, ladies and gentlemen, he did not go there to make peace. He went there so he can have something positive, number one, for his administration. Number two, he's hoping that whatever he's doing, it will help the Republican candidates. It might change your mind about the Republicans. You will see him going into all these capitals. Of course, everybody knows that he only has few more months. And he's telling the Palestinians that he's going to have... You see, this is how they waste time. This is how they waste the Palestinians' time. Everybody in the Middle East should have done what the Patriarch Atallah Hanna, who is the Christian, the Orthodox Patriarch in Jerusalem and in Bethlehem had done, he refused to meet with George Bush. George Bush went and visited the Church of the Nativity, and let's show his picture in the Church of the Nativity. The Church of the Nativity. Okay? The Church of the Nativity. There we go. Okay. You know, he visited the Church of the Nativity. By the way, exactly where he's standing, I went there many times. Now, Father Atallah Hanna refused to meet with the president. And everybody in the Middle East should have done that. These kings and princes should have done that. They should have told him no. How could you receive this man on a red carpet when Israel, with his money and this man's blessings, killing Palestinians? How could you do that? Let's go to the phones with Liberty. You're up.
Dr. Tillawi, I'm glad you made a speedy recovery from your flu.
Oh, me too. Thank you.
And I want to let you know that there's many of us out here who have been long-time supporters of the Palestinian state. Not that we're anti-Semite, because we're not. And I'd like to make a couple comments and get your feedback.
Sure.
And number one is that Canada today officially released for their travelers that the United States and Israel were on their list as to for their citizens to face torture and human rights violations. My hat's off to the Canadians. Number two is that after the visit, the PR stunt is Israel shooting off their surface-to-air missile to stir up the pot, per se. Yeah, and for what reason? This was for his so-called peace initiative.
Well, he gave them the cover. President Bush gave the Israelis the cover they needed to do what they're doing in Gaza right now. And not just Gaza, they're doing the same thing in the West Bank. And so it is not, I don't know where this peace is, because when he went there, he created war. He intensified the war that was already going on. And we really should not call it war, because war is between two states, two parties of some sort of equal strength there. But when you have a lion and a rabbit, you don't call that war, you call that massacre.
This is true. This is true. Additionally, wanting to ask you specifically, how many billions of dollars does Israel receive from we hardworking Americans to subsidize? Do you know that number?
Yes, I do.
How many billions?
Well, the official numbers, you see, there are the numbers.
There's two sets of books, I'm sure.
Well, there's two sets of books, and then you have to understand where this money is coming from. Now, they do receive $9 billion a year on official aid. That's $3 billion a year for military aid, and then they have other aids that we send, but total of $9 billion every year, that is officially. That is besides the money that they receive from us for, they call it loans, that they never pay back. Many times our Congress has, every time we have a Congress, a new Congress, they always forgive Israel of its loans.
Well, there's that old standing joke and that cliche, and it's sickening, and it's that our 51st state is Israel, but they're only allowed 2 senators. It sickens me.
Well, exactly. You know, Israel has more power than any senator and any state of the Union. it has more power. To see how powerful Israel is, just see when they are voting on anything that has to do with Israel, you will always see about 98 senators or 97 senators or 95 senators voting for whatever bill is for Israel. Now, anything to do with domestic issues, anything to do with our welfare, you will find it going through party lines. You will see 48 to 50 something or whatever. But when it comes to Israel, and they will tell you, AIPAC, they will tell politicians, because AIPAC is what rules our politicians here in this country. They will tell them, look, we will get you elected. We don't care how you're going to vote for domestic issues. Social security, health care, we don't care how you're going to do it. But when it comes to Israel, this is how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's how it works.
Understandably so. My question also is the refugee crisis that are in Jordan, which has already been burdened with the Palestinians fleeing, and now the Iraqis, and if I'm not mistaken, King Abdullah.
Yeah.
And he was pro-Western and friendly towards. Why didn't our president make a stop to meet these refugees and to meet the president of Jordan?
King of Jordan. Very good.
King of Jordan, excuse me.
Thank you, Liberty, for the question. I'll answer that. Thank you very much.
Well, good luck to you, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, you see, there are two different types of states in the Arab world. There are states who cannot live without America's help, such as Egypt, such as Jordan. Jordan lives basically on foreign money. And that's the agony also of the so-called Palestinian Authority. You know, anytime, money rules. You have to understand that money rules. I don't care who you're talking about. If you're talking about Hezbollah, if you're talking about Hamas, if you're talking about Syria, if you're talking about anyone you're talking about, you've got to see where is that money coming from. You can't have a movement with many people you have to give salaries to these people. And unless you are a country that produces money, then you're going to have to get that money from somewhere else. And when somebody, everyone in Hezbollah, everyone in Hamas, every one of these people has families. They have to raise their families. And when it comes to the National Authority, the Palestinian National Authority, these people, these government employees have families. The Palestinian National Authority does not make money. There is no money to be made in the Palestinian Authority. There is no money to be made in Gaza to become self-sufficient. So this movement, and in Jordan, same way, same thing. Why he did not make a stop in Jordan? He does not need to, because Jordan will do what the United States want them to do. Period. Period. No questions about it. Now, the other type of Arab country there is, you have what's called the Gulf states, which is the oil-rich Arab Emirates, sheikdoms, and kingdoms. These people don't need money. They can't do it. But they need protection. And who's offering that protection? The United States. So it's the same way. It's the same way. So Saudi Arabia does not need American money to live, but it needs American protection. These states, they're very much dictatorships. The democracy that we are talking about exporting, bunch of BS. Because we went and hit and destroyed where democracy was the most, whatever democracy that was, Palestine. We told these people, we need you to have elections. They had elections. The international community that went there and witnessed the Palestinian elections, they said it was fair. Nothing went wrong. But yet, we are friends. So we destroy the Palestinian hope of ever having a viable Palestinian state, and we are hanging on to these dictators. It doesn't make sense. What this man, George Bush, he's talking from both sides of his mouth. You can't say you want a democracy and progress and be friends with the dictators in the Middle East, and then you are enemy to these people who are aspiring for democracy and progress. You're not making any sense. Now, the refugee problems. One of the devastating issues that George Bush had made is he ignored the right of return for the Palestinian people. There are refugees, Palestinian refugees, who have been out there for 60 years, ladies and gentlemen, living in refugee camps. In 60 years, ladies and gentlemen, you have generations of Palestinians living in slums, ghettos, very poor, extremely crowded neighborhoods, extremely crowded homes. In these refugee camps, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot, because they gave you one little piece of land 60 years ago to build probably 2 rooms on it. And they gave your neighbor the next one next to it. So there's no room to expand. But I guarantee you, a family of 4 that was back in 1948, now they are about probably 200-300 or maybe more. Just imagine how crowded these Palestinian refugee camps and how poor. And this man wants to go there and talk about peace and yet ignore their right to return. The same right and the same organization that gave and approved Israel to be established as a state, even though these people came from Europe, went to Palestine, killed the Palestinians, and forced the rest of them out. That same organization told Israel, you cannot kill these people and they must go back to their homes. They told them that back in 1948. Until now, Israel is refusing to abide by UN Resolution number 194, which calls for the refugees to go back. That George Bush, just last week, sideswiped that issue. There will no peace. There will never be peace without justice. You've got to remember that. No peace without justice. Speaking about equality before God, this man doesn't believe in God. This man killed 1 million people. Now, should he have went to Jordan and met the 4 million Iraqi refugees that are living on the streets of Jordan, Syria, in the desert of Iraq, in tents, because they are so afraid to go and live in their neighborhoods, because they will be massacred. So you have these millions of people, and some went to Egypt too, refugees, people who used to be doctors, people who used to be engineers, middle class. They picked up their families, left everything, wanted to protect their lives, and went to live in the streets of Jordan, to live in tents in the middle of the desert. Do you want to tell me, Mr. President, what progress and what prosperity and what future do these people have? Shame on you. And shame on all these kings and princes and all these people that received you with a red carpet. Because you do not deserve it. You do not deserve it. What you deserve is an independent investigation to what you have done. You and your vice president and the cronies around you. That's what should happen. Yes, I agree with the caller. He should have went and visited the Iraqi refugees that he was the cause of. What is he going to tell them? And by the way, Even though he was received by Arab government, he was not received by the people. Demonstrations in Egypt, big time. Hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets. Demonstrations in many Arab countries, those who allowed their people to speak. Here we go again. Okay. All right. Well, I'm responsible for the program, so go ahead and take it off. Thank you. We're going to have to figure out where you can put it on the bottom. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, next week we will be here. You be there. Good night. Go do the right thing.
Opinions expressed in the previous program are solely those of the segment's producer.